Hello everyone, my name is Chinsia and welcome to my library, and today's video is sponsored by Ren. The demise and depopulation of ancient civilizations has been the topic of interest for researchers for the past few centuries, but it's only been in the past 30 years that climate change has been brought into the discussion and taken more seriously. This isn't to say that climate change was never part of the discussion, but people didn't have the technology that we have today to further examine the theories surrounding climate and the demise of ancient civilizations. So in today's video, I thought it would be fun to look at a few ancient civilizations that were impacted by climate change. But I should stress here that when I give credit to climate alterations affecting and causing the demise and fall and depopulation of these civilizations, I'm not saying that they are solely down to climate change, nor am I saying they are the primary cause of it. We cannot ignore that political, social, and economic and military reasons will have played a factor in their demise. However, climate played a core factor in them. Thanks to new technology, which is only ever evolving, climate change has become a significant factor in the discussion when we look at the fall of ancient civilizations. So without further ado, let's look at 3 examples of civilizations in which climate change played a significant role in their demise. So first, let's look at the Maya Civilization. So the Maya Civilization was one of the most dominant indigenous societies in the Mesoamerica, Mesoamerica being a term used to describe Mexico and Central America before the 16th century Spanish conquest. The Maya was centered in one geographical block, covering all of the Yucatan Peninsula and modern-day Guatemala, and the empire reached its peak of its power and influence around the 6th century CE. But the earliest Maya settlements actually date to around 1800 BCE, or the beginning of what is known as the pre-classic or formative period. From the late 8th century, though, to the end of the 9th century, something unknown happened that shook the Mayan civilization and began chipping away at its foundations. Then one by one, the classic cities of the southern lowlands were abandoned, and by 900 CE, the Maya civilization in that region had collapsed entirely. Researchers to this day still don't know what actually happened, but new research has given us an insight into how climate change, and more specifically a drought, may have played a crucial factor in its collapse, alongside other factors such as overpopulation, endemic warfare, and the overuse of land and deforestation, which obviously lead back to climate change. You see, the Mayans lived in luscious rainforests and would have relied heavily on the rain to fuel their maize fields and fill their drinking reservoirs. In the 1990s, researchers used temporal variations of oxygen isotope and the sediment composition in a 4.9 meter sediment core from the lake Chinchancanab in Mexico to reconstruct a continuous record of the Holocene climate change for the central Yucatan Peninsula. This analysis found that the interval between 800 and 1000 CE was the driest of the middle of the late Holocene epoch, and this coincided with the collapse of the classic Maya civilization. But the scale and the impact of this drought is technically unknown. Before I discuss any more ancient civilizations that may have been severely impacted by climate change, one which you might not hear much about, I'd like to take a quick moment to thank today's sponsors, Ren. Humanity is causing a rapid loss of biodiversity, and with it, Earth's ability to support complex life. But the mainstream is having difficulty grasping the magnitude of this loss, despite the steady erosion of the fabric of human civilization. However, just this year, research from 3 leading institutions found that people in well-off countries can help avert climate breakdown by making relatively straightforward lifestyle changes, from their diet to their shopping habits. Ren is a simple and effective way to make a difference in the climate crisis. Ren is a website where you can calculate your carbon footprint, then offset it by funding a diverse mix of carbon reduction projects like tree planting, mineral weathering, and rainforest protection. Ren's mission is to help you understand your lifestyle's environmental impact and show you how to reduce it. By answering a few questions about your lifestyle, Ren calculates your carbon footprint and gives you tips and advice on how to reduce that. No one can reduce their carbon footprint to zero. Obviously, most of us live in a capitalistic society, but we can start somewhere. Filling out the quiz, you can sign up to make a monthly contribution to your global projects to offset your carbon footprint. And every month, you'll get with photos and details on every tree planted, every acre reforested, and every ton of carbon offset. The first 100 people who sign up using my link in the description will get 10 extra trees planted in their name. So thank you, Ren, for sponsoring today's video, and now let's talk about 2 other civilizations affected by climate change. The Norse civilization in Greenland. Okay, I know what you're thinking. There are many reasons why the Vikings or the Norsemen vanished, but I'm not going to go into that today, unless you want me to in another video. Instead, I want to share a theory about how climate may have impacted Norse civilizations, more specifically in Greenland. You see, the Norse settlers migrated from northern Europe to western Greenland between 900 and 1000 CE, and this arrival coincided with the medieval warm period, a highly controversial theory. And we love that, don't we? We love controversial theories. Some paleoclimatologists claim that the medieval warm period was a brief climatic interval that occurred from approximately 900 CE to 1000 CE. Other paleoclimatologists argue that it wasn't just a North Atlantic phenomenon, but actually it was a global one. But research from 2019 would suggest that they're inaccurate on that idea. However, there are even some scientists who argue today that there's no data to show appreciable changes in the average temperature anywhere throughout that interval. So, what was the medieval warm period, and what did it look like according to those who fought with the theory? Well, they say that this period saw an increase in solar radiation and a decrease in volcanic eruptions, which created a La Niña-like event. Now, for those of us who didn't know this, what is a La Niña event? I know, I was the exact same thing, so I had to look it up for us. A La Niña is a complex weather pattern that occurs every few years due to variations in ocean temperatures in the equatorial band of the Pacific Ocean. During a La Niña event, ocean water from off the coast of South America to the central tropical Pacific cools to below average temperatures, and this cooling occurs because of stronger than normal easterly trade winds, which churn cooler, deeper seawater to the ocean surface. Now, sea temperatures can warm above average in the far western Pacific when this happens. Usually, cool water in the eastern Pacific influences the water circulation, which suppresses cloud, rain, and thunderstorms. Stronger trade winds pushing warm water towards Asia creates wetter conditions in Australia, and droughts in the southern US and the south of Central America, and heavy rains and flooding in the Pacific Northwest and Canada. Now, don't get me wrong, La Niña isn't a product of climate change, it's merely a weather pattern, but what happened in the medieval warm period was unprecedented. The increase in solar radiation modified the atmospheric pressure system over the North Atlantic Ocean, known as the North Atlantic Oscillation, and brought warmer winters and wetter conditions to northern Europe and most of the northern and eastern parts of North American continent. So these conditions also affected the winter weather in Greenland, North Africa, and northern Asia. So how does this deal with the Vikings, the Norsemen? Well, the medieval warming has been connected to improved crop yields in parts of Europe and the contemporary Viking occupation of Greenland, which was bliss for them. Sea ice decreased during those centuries, so sailing from Scandinavia to Greenland became less hazardous, and longer growing seasons made it feasible to graze cattle, sheep, and goats in the meadows along sheltered fjords of the Greenland's southwest coast. But then the Norse ran into some more problems. See, obviously overgrazing led to soil erosion, and Greenland had very few trees, making it not only very difficult to build and mend ships, but the lack of trees didn't help with the soil erosion issue that they were having. And then, there was the most powerful eruption of the last 7,000 years. In 1257, a volcano on the Indonesian island of Lombok erupted, and the climate scientists have found its ashy signature in ice cores drilled in Antarctica and in Greenland's vast ice sheet, which covers some 80% of the country. Sulfur ejected from the volcano into the stratosphere reflected solar energy back into space, cooling Earth's climate, leading to an increase in sea ice and ocean storms, and created what is known as the Little Ice Age, which lasted roughly from 1300 to 1850, during which the Greenland Vikings disappeared. Obviously, this wasn't the only cause of their demise. There were several other factors, including the threat of economic collapse. You see, the Vikings relied heavily on ivory sales, but then they were beaten by the Portuguese and other countries who had just started that open trade route thing you may have heard about them with the sub-Saharan Africa. And then they also had to deal with a pandemic. Obviously not COVID-19, that little thing that we know as the Black Death. Though there's no evidence to show that the plague actually hit Greenland, the plague did wipe out half the population of Norway, which was the Vikings' lifeline to other civilizations. So needless to say, they moved from Greenland for multiple reasons, including that of the wee little ice age and also other factors. The final civilization I'm going to cover today is the Ancestral Pueblo civilization. The Ancestral Pueblo lived in the Colorado Plateau region from about 300 BCE, with most tribes settling in the Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, and the Rio Grande. Now, the Ancestral Pueblo civilization are pretty hardcore. We have to give them so much credit where credit is due, because they weren't easily defeated by the weather. Climate was not a threat to them. In fact, they were one of the best civilizations to adapt to one of the biggest climate disasters in history. Again, another volcano here. The volcanic winter of 536 was the most severe and protracted episode of climate cooling in the northern hemisphere in the last 2,000 years. The volcano erupted in Iceland, but North America suffered just as much as Europe, trust me. However, the Ancestral Pueblo were very quick thinking and adapted very well to the threat. See, they actually forged ties with neighbouring groups, leading to a population, technological and lifestyle boom in the civilization until around circa 750 CE. So what happened to them after that? Well, the Ancestral Pueblo people abandoned their communities around 1300 CE, and many theorize that the convergence of cultural and environmental factors caused this to occur. You see, they, like the Mayans, lived agricultural lifestyles and depended on their crops, especially maize, beans and squash. But they too fell for that damn deforestation trap that we still haven't learned our lesson from thousands of years later. Additionally, the Great Drought, which lasted between 1276 to 99, probably caused massive crop failure, and rainfall continued to be sparse and unpredictable until approximately 1450. Now, just like the other civilizations we've discussed today, the climate wasn't significant enough in itself to cause the downfall. But climate difficulties, as you can imagine, caused a lot of tension between people, and they actually undermined the credibility of the social system, often leading to revolutions. And obviously, if the climate's affecting how people are, how their social systems are structured, people are going to rebel against one another. And that inequality and that revulsion would lead to a civilization collapsing and into warfare and all that jazz. Good old endemic warfare takes it all out. But those are just three of many ancient civilizations that are affected by climate change. I know there's someone out there who expected me to cover Atlantis. It wasn't real. It's not underwater, but there are civilizations which are underwater. And if you'd like me to talk about those, I will talk about those. But Atlantis never existed. Please let go of this pipe dream. It was a metaphor. Please. There are other civilizations out there that are very interesting that are underwater. But that's all I have for today's video. There are many civilizations, but I thought I was giving you a lot of heavy information here, so I wanted to keep it nice and minimal and kept it to 3. If there's anything you'd like me to cover in more depth, please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you again, Ren, for sponsoring today's video. Please check out Ren's link in my description box down below. It really helps support my channel and keeps me afloat. And thank you to everyone for watching, and I will see you soon for another video. And remember, books save lives, so keep reading.